Year two for Matt Rule has always meant good things. Nebraska fans, be pumped and also be excited, of course, about fall camp starting here in just a few days in Lincoln. It's the week of Big Ten Media Days as well. Talking Nebraska football, we got Justin Adams on the line. You can catch him, of course, on our Nebraska channel. So, folks, listen up. Every Tuesday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, where it counts. Join Justin for Nebraska football at the Voice of College Football. Justin, what's going on tonight?
Not a whole lot. Finally previewing the season, which is a good sign. That means it is coming closer. And we're at that point where it just feels like we're coming off of that quiet period, that lull where news was a little slow. So it's nice to be talking a little football again.
I've been telling people that if they get sick of talking season, this is the pinnacle and climax of talking season, that we're going to get more talk this week than the entire offseason, but it's right before the football. So don't worry. So here we go, folks. You're going to have to listen to a little bit more talk, but this is important football talk, X's and O's as we break down the Huskers. We'll start on offense at the quarterback position. Dylan Raiola, one of the most talked about players in all of college football this offseason, and what he is expected to deliver as a true freshman. Heinrich Haarberg started last year, should be the expected backup. But what are your expectations of Dylan Raiola? What is reasonable?
Yeah, for Raiola, I think what a lot of people don't understand is when previewing Nebraska, people want to coin him as true freshman quarterback, of course, in determining how they think he will do or how Nebraska's offense will do. Well, when you come from a quarterback room that was the worst in all of FBS last year, you don't really need him to come in and be a game-changing, game-breaking quarterback. If he comes in and he's able to produce, he's an obvious upgrade. If he's able to manage the game, he's an obvious upgrade. So what I expect from Raiola is, I think, the early slate of games in this first 7 games of the schedule are all winnable. Nebraska should be favored in all of them, because the most difficult games are, Rutgers, and probably the Colorado game. And that one to me is not that difficult, but that's neither here nor there. So I expect Raiola to be able to come out and be able to kind of ease into things. UTEP week 1, he's going to have that big matchup against Colorado week 2 primetime. That'll be a good opportunity for him to get his first primetime game, and a game that isn't a team that is going to be heavily favored against Nebraska. Typically those primetime games, we go up against the Ohio States of the world, get our doors blown off. So it'd be nice for Raiola in week 2 to be able to get an amped up primetime, one of the biggest atmospheres he'll see against Colorado, and do it against a team that Nebraska will be favored against. They open as a 6.5 point favorite there. So I expect a season for Raiola where he's going to probably throw the ball, 30, 35 times a game. I expect him to finish somewhere around the 28, to 9 touchdown interception ratio, that type of vibe. But I think he's going to be able to come in and just be able to command the offense in a way that it wasn't commanded last year. Satterfield's going to be able to run the offense that he wants now that he is the big body quarterback with the big arm that he prefers back there. And then, of course, the depth is a little bit of a concern. The lack of experience there is a little concern. But Jalen Gramstead coming in from NAIA late in this spring was one of the top players in the NAIA conference of football. So he's coming in with some experience to help Haarberg, kind of lead that quarterback room. Great mindset. He's, wants to be a coach. Jalen Gramstead wants to be a coach in the future, so he's going to be a good mind for that quarterback room as well. So a couple of experienced guys there to help Raiola with that mentality and kind of get locked in and be able to mentor him and the other true freshman, Danny Kalen, the 4-star that's kind of flown under the radar. So,
folks, if you enjoy player breakdowns on film, join Justin over on the Nebraska channel. He enjoys doing it, does a great job as well. And that leads me to Dylan Raiola in regards to just pure talent, arm strength, arm skill. What can you compare him to? What does he look like?
So, and I know people are going to freak out when we say this, because when comparing a player to a NFL, what we believe he looks like in terms of his play style and arm angles, stuff like that, people think we're comparing to that player. We're 100% not. But Pat Mahomes is one of the players that he gets the most because he works with Jeff Christensen, who was also Patrick Mahomes' quarterback coach. In terms of their build, they are very, very similar. The way they carry themselves, very, very similar. And you can see the elements in that coaching style of Jeff Christensen and Dylan Raiola's game. because he does make those different arm angle changes. He can throw from different arm slots. He can make the off-platform throws. Now, of course, he's no Pat Mahomes, but he does have a very similar play style. He can run when he needs to, but he's not going to be running a whole lot. You're not going to have a lot of design quarterback runs with him. He's going to be trying to let that go with his, cannon of an arm, very explosive deep field thrower. But he's great mechanically. Everything from his lower body up is just perfect throughout. And then you'll occasionally see, even with the pressure coming in on him in the pocket, he's able to stand in and make tough throws even when he's getting hit. It shows up all over his game film from high school over in Georgia. So he's just one of those guys that's going to be able to come in. He's going to be able to stand strong in the pocket, but he knows how to move the pocket and he knows how to throw off platform when he needs to. And the good thing that we saw in the spring game is on those off platform throws, he does make it a point to make sure that he puts the ball in a position to where his receiver can get it. So that way it's not one of those, situations where you throw it off platform, he's going to throw a little bit off the mark and it's going to be intercepted. So he does a good job of putting it where only his receiver can get it, or it's going to be overthrown. So just does a lot of the things well that are off schedule. So with the running back room this year, the running back room is a mixture of a lot of young guys and a lot of experienced guys, but the experienced guys are coming off of injuries. You got your Gabe Ervin coming off of injury. You have Ramir Johnson coming off of injury. So those are guys that really kind of are, Ramir Johnson especially is a guy that's not mentioned enough in my opinion. Gabe Ervin, of course, is, but Emmett Johnson, the incumbent returning starter, Emmett Johnson had a great year last year, was one of the guys that I was excited about coming into the season. And with some injuries, he was able to get in there and be the starter. And, he did very well, all things considered, with a, offense that couldn't move the ball through the air. So a lot of stacked boxes defensively, but he's a guy who can, he's got quick feet in a phone booth. He can go around you. He can go through you. He runs hard. He plays hard, but he's cerebral. He's got this mentality about him. When they were talking in an interview and asked him about the upcoming spring game and what he was most excited about for the spring game, well, he's like, I got practice tomorrow. I'm excited about tomorrow. And he's like, we'll get to the spring. So he's a day by day type of guy. And that's, he's a grinder. And so Emmett Johnson coming out, redshirt freshman last year, going to be probably the starter this year, in my opinion. And then Gabe Ervin's going to supplement him. Gabe Ervin, all around type of back too, very well could be the starter, 1A, 1B there, in my opinion. And then you got your Oregon transfer, Dante Dowdell, coming in from Oregon, played in limited action last year. I know he flashed in the spring game, and a lot of people get excited about the flash in the spring game. But looking at him as a player, he still could develop a little bit. He's going to be a part of this team. But I think a lot of people calling him for the start or him to be ahead of Gabe Ervin and Emmett Johnson, just not quite yet. Ramir Johnson, he's another one of those guys that I was telling you could rotate through a slot receiver type of role as well. He's a kid from Jersey, just plays, it does a little bit of everything well. But he's just one of those guys that you want to get in space. He's a playmaker. He's fast. He can, quick feet, can accelerate quickly. So they want to get him in space. Like I said, you can rotate him through the slot receiver position. He's very similar, in my opinion, to Quentin Ives. Quentin Ives, another one of those shifty guys who can really get up the field if you get the ball in his hands. So it's a good combination here of a lot of guys who are well-rounded. You got a power guy in Dante Dowdell and a power guy in Gabe Ervin. But then you got your shiftier guys and your Ramir Johnsons, your Quentin Ives. So this is a running back room that they can do a lot of different things with. And I think we're going to see these guys mixed all over the field, and they're going to get the ball in their hands in a lot of different ways. So a lot of stuff can be expected from all of those guys I mentioned in the offense this season.
So, Justin, you completely whiffed on the leading rusher from last season. You're giving Heinrich Haarberg no shot of leading this team in rushing again.
I do not think that this offensive game plan wants to run the ball with the quarterback that much ever again. Heinrich Haarberg, love him for what he did. He stepped up, but Heinrich Haarberg is an athlete playing quarterback. But yeah, I mean, if we ever needed him to, if we got banged up and all of our running back room went down, Heinrich Haarberg could probably step in there and do the job.
Malachi Coleman gave us that glimpse. It was the Northwestern game, tight game. He pretty much provided the winning margin when he just bolted by the secondary. Beautiful throw. It's just a thing of beauty, but only got 8 catches last year. So obviously Nebraska fans want to see him a whole lot more. Jamal Banks comes in from Wake Forest, and also Isaiah Nair, cup of coffee at Texas, but didn't do much there. But 44 catches, 12 touchdowns the season before with the Cowboys. And again, Jamal Banks with a ton of experience playing with Sam Hartman a few years ago, 107 catches in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamal Banks. Well, let's talking about Malachi first. So Malachi, still very young receiver, just wasn't able to kind of make his mark last year in this offense. But I think another year, having a guy like a Jamal Banks, who's a very, similar type of receiver in size and stature, and being able to help him unlock his physical tools. And Isaiah Nair as well, just a very athletic, speedy guy, but also a big framed guy. Those guys, I think, coming in are going to really help mentor Malachi, because Malachi is not lacking in talent, just needs a little bit of that experience and needs to be able to just kind of make his way into this wide receiver room and kind of start to pave his lane and show his what he can do well. With Jamal Banks coming in, Jamal Banks is a guy who had 0 drops all of last season with a really bad quarterback and not a very good offense. If you look at his numbers, they're nothing to write home about, but it was because of that offense that he was in over at Wake Forest. So 0 drops last year, one of the highest graded wide receivers according to PFF. So he's coming in as something Nebraska hasn't had. We have not had a sure-handed guy. We have not had a guy that you can just go to, Trey Palmer with our deep threat, but I'm talking about last year. We just didn't have a guy that you can go to in the moments where you need, a third and long. You just need a sure-handed guy to be able to go up, maybe throw a jump ball up to, a 50-50 ball up to in the end zone, little things like that. Nebraska hasn't had that. They finally have that in Jamal Banks. And I've said this a couple times, Isaiah Nair coming over from Texas and Wyoming, had his big season in Wyoming. He's just a playmaker, get the ball in his hands type of guy. He's a burner, but like I said, he does have some height and ball skills and can get 50-50 balls. So with that combination of Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair, this reminds me as a Texans fan of 2017 Texans, of a DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller type of situation, where you have the sure-handed guy who's going to be able to go out as a possession receiver, get you those, underneath routes and be able to sit down in the cushion, find a pocket and beat you with his good route running. But then you also have a guy that can stretch the field and you can get him in some deep crossers, and Isaiah Nair, who, that underneath stuff is going to set up over the top for guys like him and Jalen Lloyd. So him and Isaiah Nair, to me, can play very well off of each other. They're going to be starting on opposite sides of the field. And then you're going to have your guys like your Malachi Coleman's be able to come in and supplement those guys in there. So I think Malachi is going to really grow a lot from having that leadership this year. Again, not a lot of experience last year with the injuries in the wide receiver room. So you have a couple guys coming in from elsewhere who can also mentor him and kind of, show him the ropes. And Jamal Banks being that sure-handed, good route running receiver who knows how to use his physicality, knows how to use his body. There's one thing about having the body, but there's another thing to know how to use it. And I think if he could teach Malachi how to really tap into using his physical advantages to his advantage, it's going to grow him just tremendously as a receiver. And I think we see Malachi take that jump this year.
Justin, you mentioned Jalen Lloyd. Anybody else may get meaningful targets?
It's going to be a lot of rotation. I do think we're going to have a lot of running backs that are also going to be rotating through the slot as well. This offense that they run is a positionless 49er style of offense. We'll even see some tight ends, maybe a Carter Nelson rotate through at the wide receiver position. But they moved Janiron Bonner from fullback over to receiver, and Matt Rule has said he sees him as a NFL level fullback. That's how good he is, as a receiver in their eyes, that they moved him over to receiver from fullback. So he also has that ability to block on the edge. So I think Janiron Bonner is going to be a big part of this offensive game plan. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, he's a guy who's been with the program, but has been forgotten about because of his injuries. Well, he said he's put on about 25 pounds. He's feeling faster. He's feeling stronger. And that's a guy who coming in was somebody who was supposed to flash. And so I think we're going to see, IGC get in there and start to make some waves like we expected him to. And then if you got your, your guys that have just been there, your tried and true guys like your Alex Bullock, he was a walk-on, earned a scholarship just out of his role. Just one of those guys that plays the game the right way, does everything the right way, stays on the field, is he's not going to flash any greatness in any area, but he's just a good all-around guy with a great mind for football. So yeah, Jalen Lloyd, Janiron Bonner, Alex Bullock, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, We got a few guys in there that are just straight burners. Jalen Lloyd was a burner last year that has developed some of his route running this year, and I expect a little bit more of that. But there's so many guys that are waiting in the wings that could potentially be another, Jalen Lloyd level of burner that we'll see who flashes. But like I said, this is going to be a big rotation of different positions for the wide receiver room. So those are the guys right now that it's looking like will be the biggest part of this offense.
IGC had that big opener against Northwestern a couple years ago, but also a questionable fumble in that game that obviously cost Nebraska in that one as well. And when you say positionless offense, I guess we can just throw the tight ends right in with wide receivers. You mentioned Carter Nelson, obviously a top recruit coming in. Thomas Fidone, he's got to feel good that he finally got to actually play a football season. And 25 catches for him, 4 touchdowns. So the tight end room, how does that fit in?
Yeah, well, you mentioned Fidone first off, and Fidone was the biggest part of that offense last year. And thinking about Fidone, he was a near 5-star recruit out of high school, and he came in and he tore both of his ACLs his first 2 seasons. He tore one ACL his freshman season and tore the opposite ACL his next season. So last year he was finally able to get on the field, but he was still kind of rehabbing. So he wasn't in a full off-season camp. He didn't have a full off-season behind him, out of a non-contact jersey. And so this is, he finally has a year of experience, and he did very well last year. One of our top receivers, I think he was our second leading receiver, might have had our most touchdowns last year. So a year removed from that, where he has a full season under his belt and a full off-season to get better. Not only that, what people are probably outside of Nebraska aren't going to realize is that Nebraska really didn't have a dedicated tight end coach. Satterfield coming into last season was supposed to be the quarterback coach and the tight end coach and the offensive coordinator. Well, Jake Peets, who was supposed to come as a quarterback coach, fell through before the season started. Therefore, Satterfield had to coach quarterbacks, tight ends, and be the offensive coordinator. So now they brought in Glenn Thomas to help coach the quarterbacks. So Satterfield is now going to be in that tight end room like he wants to be, coaching those tight ends. So they'll have a dedicated coach. Satterfield's going to be doing that in the OC. So I'm excited to see his development there and see that tight end room development, because that is going to be a huge, huge part of any Marcus Satterfield offense, because he loves to get big, loves to get physical, loves to use 2 tight end sets. And Fidone is going to be that receiving threat. He needs to really kind of develop as a blocker. Like you said, had a great season, eight starts, most touchdowns on the team, is just great receiving tight end. Would love to see him develop a little bit as a blocker, but might get to see it a little bit this year.
Check out Justin's work each and every day on the Nebraska channel, but it's Tuesday nights where you catch Justin live. It's every Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central over on the Nebraska channel. The offensive line, Bryce Benhart is one of the most experienced players in the history of the program. 41 career starts, is the tied for number 1 among offensive linemen. How do you feel about this group coming into 2024?
It's probably the best I've felt about an offensive line in a long time. And it was kind of this year by year bashing of the offensive line for Nebraska fans over these last few years. And I think a lot of people carried that over into last season, and really they were kind of skewed. Their opinion was kind of skewed on what the offensive line looked like last year, because in every conceivable metric, the offensive line got better. A lot of people thought Dominic Raiola was Donovan Raiola was kept on the staff to get Dylan Raiola onto the team. And that's not the case. He is a really good offensive line coach, and that showed year over year last year. So the offensive line got much better, at tackles. We got, Teddy Prohaska. And Teddy Prohaska, he's had some lower extremity injuries. He's sick, but he's like 6'9", 6'10". It's hard to be a 6'9", 6'10" offensive lineman. The best size for an offensive tackle, I think the average in the NFL is about 6'3", 6'4". That puts you at a good height for leverage. So that way you're not too tall. So your leverage isn't too, your head over toes, head over heels. And those guys aren't sneaking under your arms. And like I said, those lower extremity injuries have plagued him. But he's going to be the starting left tackle. Very, very big guy, experienced, and he's going to be one of our better linemen last year. You got Bryce Benhart, who kind of struggled early on, but turned it on last year, was one of the most consistent guys. He's going to probably be opposite tackle. You got Turner Corcoran coming back, who started before. He flashed in moments last year, but he's solid. Was a borderline 5-star out of high school, but he's versatile and can move him around if need be. At guard, Justin Evans Jenkins, who's going to be a sophomore this year, 6'1", 315. He was our best graded pass protector last year. Could stand to get a little bit better in the run blocking, but he's a sophomore. He's going to get better in that avenue, but was by far our highest graded pass protector. And he can also play both guard spots. He can rotate to center if need be. So you got Justin Evans Jenkins at the guard, Micah Mazuka, who was one of our big transfers in this offseason, played at Florida, played at Baylor. I'm very high on Micah Mazuka. At Florida, he seemed to play better against the tougher competition. Would have been our highest graded offensive lineman last year. 74.9 was his grade, I believe, overall in PFF. So would have graded out as our highest offensive lineman had he been on the team. And was the 22nd highest graded interior O lineman in the country last year. So Micah Mazuka being a big part, a big addition to this team to go along with the already developing offensive line. And then, of course, we're bringing back the center, Ben Scott. He was at Arizona State before, second year at Nebraska, one of the best centers in the country, will be one of the best centers in the country this year yet again. Nothing bad to say about Ben Scott. He's just an all-around guy. Outside of that, we got Gibson Pyle, who's going to be a freshman out of Texas. We'll see if maybe, as an early enrollee, he can get in there and maybe have some playing time this year. Gunnar Gatula, Sam Sledge, Jacob Hood. So a lot of guys that can rotate through there, but those guys that I mentioned are going to be the forefront of this offensive line moving forward this year.
Got Justin Adams here to break down the Huskers for us on the eve of Big Ten Media Days, and then it's right into fall camp in Lincoln. So it's time to get to work and take all those reps at the bench press and the squat rack and take them out onto the field this August. And again, you can catch Justin on the Nebraska channel every Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, but you can pretty much join him every day with some new content there on the Huskers channel. Also, the Big Ten Show, that's another channel that Justin has fired up for us. You can catch more of a look at the Big Ten, again, the Big Ten Show, and look it up right here on YouTube. All right. If you didn't watch this defense play last year, you might have thought, well, Nebraska went 5-7 and they had another unsuccessful season. So the defense must not have been that very good. But the truth is it was one of the best defenses in the Big Ten, number 11 in the country, in a league that featured great defense. And I know a lot of the 10 toughest players on the Nebraska team that the players like to vote on come on the defensive side.
Yep.
And Tony White has pretty much perfected this 3-3-5 scheme. So start with the defensive line and take us there first and foremost.
Yeah, well, the defensive line is going to be coming into the season the best position group on this team. It was in Phil Steele's top 10, offensive line groups for this upcoming season. And it starts, right there at the nose of the 3-3-5 with Nash Hutmacher. So, the nose of a 3-3-5 is one of those guys that, he's going to be able to, he wants to collapse. He's a 2-gap, 0 nose type of guy. So he's guarding that 2 gaps, but he's just a disruptor. And typically your noses won't get stats, but in a 3-3-5, it's a little bit different because you're going to have him trying to be able to steal off that inside and get guys to the edges. And what he's going to try to force to the edges, but you can't really double in the 3-3-5 in some instances because you want to have numbers, right? And so the biggest thing about a 3-3-5 is you need to take one-on-one blocks so you can get numbers since there's 5 defensive backs out there instead of your 4 defensive linemen or 4 linebackers. You replace a defensive lineman with a defensive back. And so he's just a game wrecker. He's going to be the guy that's going to try to get in there and just disrupt the backfield, to get any kind of penetration he can, or draw doubles. If they don't double him, good luck keeping him out of the backfield. If they do double him, he then gives numbers to the defense because now the offensive, with 5 defensive backs, if you got a guy coming around the edge, if they can pick up your nose and they can pick up your edge, then they have numbers. So he's that initial line that he wants to get in there and draw that double to disrupt what the offense wants to do with their game. And then you bring it outside to, senior Ty Robinson. Ty Robinson has been there, multiple years, came out of Arizona, was a Scott Frost guy out of Arizona, but had a great season last year, one of his better seasons last year. It was one of those guys that we really didn't see panning out as he was projected to out of high school until last season. The year before we saw a little bit of flash, and then this last season we really, really saw it. So, Ty Robinson over there on the defensive end, he's one of those guys he's going to be great in the run game. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, and he could have went in the draft last year. Him and Nash both were about third-round grades last year. Both could have went in the draft, but he said he felt like he wanted to come back, and he felt like last season he wasn't his best self. He wants to come back this season, and he wants to perform. So it's 2 potential NFL draft picks right there on your defensive line with Nash and Ty Robinson. Then you got Jamari Butler. Jamari Butler is a sophomore. He led the team in sacks last year. So he's probably our best pass rushing defensive end. Insanely athletic, insanely quick, just could get better in the run protection and the run game. So you got a couple guys there that feed off each other, one good in pass, one good at run. Cam Linhart coming in was second in sacks as a true freshman. So Cam Linhart came in with 3 sacks last year. Honorable mention All-American freshman. Sorry, it's third in sacks. Honorable mention All-American freshman. Will be a great defensive lineman. I think might be one of our better defensive linemen we had come through in a long time by the time it's said and done, because the way he operates, like Matt Rhule said, he's just a grown man. When he came in there from day one, he operated like he was a grown man, and he played like it. So Cam Linhart's going to be a big part of that rotation. Great pass rusher. Princewell Umani-Uwelen, and it's a hard name to say. I know it's a hard name to spell too. So, but another one, he was second team freshman All-American. Super athletic, super versatile, and a great pass rushing skill set. So he's a lot of moves that lead to him being a great pass rusher, can put a little bit of size and strength on, which I'm sure he did in this offseason. So Princewell Umani-Uwelen coming off of, the bench as well. They're going to be rotating these guys through the defensive line as well. And lastly, Riley Van Poppel, who's that nose to supplement Nash when Nash moves out. But Riley Van Poppel, in my opinion, can be just as good, if not better, than Nash by the time it's said and done. He played as a freshman and flashed. So we're going to be able to see him rotate in there. So it's a good combination of youth and young guys, but just talent across the board. So super excited about the defensive line.
3 of the top 4 tacklers on the team coming back, including at linebacker with Javin Wright, 51 stops, and John Bullock with 50.
Yep. So Javin Wright, like you said, Buddha Wright, 6'5", he's a big body guy, but he can cover, he can play inside backer, he can play outside backer, he can bring pressure. And he broke out last season after some injuries kind of plagued him a little bit before. But yeah, Javin Wright's one of those guys who had an excellent season last year, had some big moments. I remember a couple of his interceptions. I think he had 2 in one game. I can't remember which one it was. So we got Javin Wright coming back, like you said. John Bullock, 4th in tackles last season, I believe, at 50, single-digit number, like you mentioned before, which is his toughest players. John Bullock plays hard, plays smart. He's a junior there. But then we got guys like Stephon Thompson. Stephon Thompson came in from Syracuse, a former Tony White player over at Syracuse. So he's familiar with the 3-3-5. And in my opinion, I think he might be one of our best linebackers this season. He's back under Tony White. He was second on the team in sacks his true freshman season. But then he got injured, had a season away or a couple seasons kind of just, getting back from injury. But he did have a green non-contact jersey the entire offseason of his comeback. And then in his comeback, he was able to actually pick up where he left off. I believe he had somewhere around 50-something tackles, 50-something tackles in his return season after spending the entire offseason in a green non-contact practice jersey. Now he's another year removed from that. So he's going to be a full go. I think Stephon Thompson is going to be probably one of the most versatile guys on this team. He's going to be able to do a little bit of everything, and he's going to be one of the key cogs of this team, probably going to be our best linebacker. Then you got MJ Sherman, your Jack. He's going to need to take a leap this year in his development, but he improved this offseason. Mekhi Gaber, 20 tackles last season, but has the potential to take a big leap this year. Very, very physical type of player. And then the phenom, the guy we've been hearing about the most this offseason, the guy that we're most excited about, Vincent Shavers. Vincent Shavers, a true freshman out of Miami. He's a guy who just has a nose for the football and has had nothing but glowing reviews from the staff this offseason. And with Matt Rhule's staff, for them to praise a true freshman, like even when Raiola came in, they're like, we want to be careful not to praise him because he's a player here, right? He's not a 5-star recruit when he steps in this building, right? Vincent Shavers came in and earned that. And he's going to be probably by next year, one of these team captains, if not a single-digit number holder this year. But Vincent Shavers, he has been we've heard nothing but great things about him. And, he's got a great head on his shoulders. His dad's very involved in his recruitment. His dad watches my videos sometimes. So very good group of people. But Vincent Shavers, man, he's going to be on a lot of boards this season in terms of just players that you didn't expect to hear his name called as much as they do between other Big Ten coaches, but they're going to have his name written on that board as a guy to look out for on that defense for sure.
Justin Adams breaking down the Huskers for us. Of course, join Justin each and every Tuesday. That's at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 Central on the Huskers live show over on the Nebraska channel. We will leave the link to the Nebraska channel first line right in the description section. Check out Justin's work. It's a good time, not just for the Huskers show, but all week, every week leading into fall camp, folks. Tommy Hill picked off 4 passes at corner last year. 26 tackles for him. So take us through the corners and the safeties.
Yeah, and so this is a revolving door here and a pain point a little bit this offseason, and a pain point not due to lack of talent, but it's lack of experience and lack of depth. Nebraska was able to go out and get Bly Hill this offseason as a incoming transfer. And I was very excited about Bly Hill. It's about 6'3" long, rangy corner, the perfect prototypical corner that you want on that edge to supplement Tommy Hill. He got injured in the spring game. Don't know if he'll be ready for the opener. Hopefully he'll be ready by week 2. However, they brought in Sierra Wright. Sierra Wright, actor, was in Space Jam 3, came over from USC. Thing about Sierra Wright is he wanted to be at USC to be closer to Hollywood. Was a little bit distracted by the acting. No fault of his. If I was an exceptional actor and be able to be in Space Jam 3 too and play football at high level, I'd probably be distracted a little bit too. It's just a kid he suffers from having a lot of talents, as suffering as that must be. But you got to think maybe the move to, the Midwest has him thinking maybe I want to put a little bit more focus on football this last season and really kind of hammer home and really make my name in this football, because he was 90 rated transfer, coming over, took a year off, but excited to see what Sierra Wright can do. I just want to see, we need to see it, just since he's had some time off from football, we need to see it. So I would venture to guess that he might step in for Bly Hill while Bly Hill's out, but as soon as Bly Hill comes back in, he's going to get that cornerback 2 spot. And then Tommy Hill, the other corner you talked about, of course, Tommy Hill's story's been crazy. Tommy Hill was a wide receiver. It was in the wide receiver rooms for the Rutgers game last year, the year before last, right? They're bouncing him back and forth between wide receiver and defensive back rooms. Well, last year he finally was just coined in as a defensive back, and his role slowly expanded. He got better and better as the season went along. His PFF grade, coverage grade wise, rivaled Kool-Aid McKinstry and Kamari Lassiter, who both got drafted 41st and 42nd overall, right behind Cooper DeJean at 40th. So I think Tommy Hill has the potential to be able to, be a mid to late second round draft pick this year. He's that good. Was just overall all around, it was best season to date by far. It wasn't even close. And so Tommy Hill's jump this year is going to be big, in my opinion. And he's going to make a lot of, make a big name for himself this year. And then looking at the safeties, we got Malcolm Hartzog, who has the ability to play both. Malcolm Hartzog was going to rotate to safety, but then the Bly Hill injury happened, so he's probably going to stay at corner. But he started 7 games at corner, started 3 at safety, 40 tackles, 6 pass breakups. So Malcolm Hartzog is one of those guys, like I said, sophomore. So development there. So we get to see his jump this year. We have Deshaun Singleton, who's a junior. Marquez Buford, he was rehabbing an injury, and missed the first 8 games of last season, but was able to use his red shirt. So Marcus Buford is going to be a big part of this safety room as well. He is just a physical type of guy, fits perfectly into what they want in this 3-3-5 defense and this physicality that they preach. And then Jeremiah Charles. So Jeremiah Charles is one of those freak athletes I was talking about. And the way Matt Rule operates is he says there's no ceiling on athleticism, or there's a ceiling on athleticism, but there's no ceiling on skill, right? And so sometimes he takes a chance on these guys who don't have a lot of experience playing football, but they're freakishly athletic. Jeremiah Charles is that guy. He played 1 season of football at wide receiver, but is just an insanely good athlete. So Matt Rule offered him. He actually came on and won the halftime slam dunk contest. The football team, participated in a halftime slam dunk contest for the basketball season. So, and he won that. So just an insane athlete. I would love to see how long it's going to take him to get on the field and what kind of development it's going to take for him. But from what it sounds like, he's been picking up on everything quickly. He's a quick learner. And, when you have a certain level of athleticism, you're going to be good at a lot of different things. You're still going to have to develop that skill set, but it's going to put you in a place where they're like, okay, we can build from this. It's not going to take too much to get you over the hump and at least get you some playing time. So, and he'll be fully rotated in with this kind of, it's 5 defensive backs and we're hurting at corner. So this rotation is going to be constantly funneling through. We might hear a couple of other names pop through there, but those are the guys that I expect to hear the most of. And Isaac Gifford being the big guy. Isaac Gifford is the all Big Ten honorable mention. First Husker defensive back with 80 tackles in a season since Nathan Gary in 2014. And that Nathan Gary season was because a lot of people were getting to the second level because there wasn't much of a run defense. So 86 tackles for him, 6.5 TFLs, 1 interceptions, and he's one of the best players and leaders all around on this team. So Isaac Gifford is going to be probably the captain of this defense in a lot of ways.
Well, Justin, obviously, special teams were a sore spot under Scott Frost. Brian Buschini, a really good punter who's been with the Huskers the last couple of years. I don't even know if he's back, but a lot of missed field goals even last season. So your thoughts about special teams and if we'll see improvement?
Yeah, it's, the special teams, it's weird in a way to kind of be able to kind of dictate how they're going to do this season, because to me, I think a lot of this is mental from our special teams guys. With Buschini, we know he has a leg. With Tristan Alvano was a freshman last year, but looking at his last game in high school, he was 5 for 5 in the Nebraska State Championship game and hit a 50-plus yard field goal at the end of the game to win the state championship. So he's ice in his veins, nailed a 50-yard plus. So he was an excellent kicker in high school, one of the best kickers in the country. I think what happened to him a lot last year, and I don't think enough people point out this fact, that offense was so bad that you got to think about a true freshman kicker and coming in there, and every field goal is that much more important because points were so hard to come by for us, right? And I don't think a lot of people factor that in. So I think a lot of what he was having was kind of the yips. I think it was a lot of mental. And when you're real tight and you're over focusing on your fundamentals and not just letting it flow and become muscle memory, you're going to be tight. You're going to pull. You're going to shank. Your leg's going to be a lot tighter. And you're not just letting it kick. You're not just letting your mechanics go and what go. And so I think just this offseason, I think just him kind of gaining some of that confidence coming into next season. I think with a little bit of the offense taking some pressure off of his shoulders, I think Alvano is going to be a very, very good kicker next year. The punting game has been very inconsistent no matter who's been there, so it remains to be seen on that. Ed Foley, say what you will about him. We'll see if he can make the special teams something that it should be. If not, Ed Foley needs to be, talked about a little bit because there does need to be some changes made and improvements made. And if this season ain't it, then it's got to come along with the rest of the team. And same with the punt return, kick returner. We got a lot of athletic guys. Tommy Hill can even step in there. You got your Jalen Lloyd. So we have a lot of guys who can finally be a good kick returner, punt returner that we haven't had since DeMornay Pearson-L. And that's needed. We're going to need a guy who can get up there and get us some yards in special teams. Again, take all the pressure off this offense that you can. We need those guys in those positions to be able to step up this year. So hopefully they'll do that.
DeMornay Pearson-L. Boy, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
No, right? Don't punt. That was his Twitter handle. Don't punt. Yep.
Yeah, he was electric. He was fun to watch.
Oh,
this Nebraska team is going to be fun to watch. They are definitely a wild card. A lot of mixed opinions on whether they're going to just kind of stay in neutral and get beaten down by a tough Big Ten schedule, or they're going to take advantage of an early, fairly soft ride through most of September and October and be able to take off from there. Justin Adams breaking down the Huskers for us. And you can join Justin each and every Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. And I'm sure there's going to be a prediction out of Justin here in the next few weeks as we get close to the season. I will do the same. here on the main channel. And of course, again, it's the Nebraska channel each and every day for you. You can join Justin on the Big Ten Show. You can type that right into the search bar on YouTube and find Justin breaking down all things Big Ten over there as well. Justin, appreciate you stopping by, getting us all set for fall camp. I think we're all much smarter concerning GBR because of you.
Hopefully people take it and don't just start to argue with it, because that's typically what happens. I'll tell people some of this stuff and they'll be like, yeah, but I'm like, all right, cool. We'll just see when the season rolls around then.